Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Making Light Two Humans Being. I'm Julie Hiert, and with me, as always, as I always say, is Kate Foggo. This is the show where Kate and I are both certified soul level animal communicators and certified soul level intuitive coaches. And we have these intuitive abilities, but we're also human. And so we're constantly balancing, using both in any given situation and what we bump up against as humans, but also intuitives. And this is the show where we discuss all of that. So today we wanted to talk about animals, and particularly as they transition. I don't like to say the word death with animals. I'm just going to say, but anyway, we're going to talk about animals transitioning in euthanasia, because we've had a number of clients that have had to go through this, and we've had experiences that we wanted to compare and contrast and share with everybody. So go ahead.
What is death that everyone gets so upset about? Yeah, I don't mind the word transitioning, that's the one I've chosen, but like going over the rainbow bridge and all that, I just feel it's a bit meh. It is, isn't it? Like they're fucking dead. Like, get over it.
Yeah.
No, I do. I suppose I like transitioning, but it still feels like you're just dancing around the issue.
Well, the way that they tell me, the animals tell me, is like they don't necessarily like to use the word death, because humans have this idea that bam, and they're done, and they're gone. You can't talk to them. They're complete. And it's like, it's not that way at all, even on the human perspective. That's why there's mediums, right? So they prefer the word transition or past, next chapter, crossed over. They don't necessarily say the rainbow bridge unless their human really has an affinity to that phrase. I'm whatever they want to say.
Angel wings is another one. Anyway, but it happens and it's very sad and but let's get to the nitty-gritty, because I had a client ask some questions about her cat that passed recently. So we believe, this is what we've been taught, and thus far I don't know anyone in our group or between you and I and all our other animal communicators, nobody has experienced anything different, and that is that the animal is actually in control of everything that happens. So even though you think that you're controlling it, you're not. And that's down to the degree of, even surprisingly for me, which I actually felt a lot better about when I found out, including being run over by a car. Because my beautiful cat Twiggy, the very day that Gary agreed that we should move house, which was signaling a change in lifestyle for me, because we'd be selling the house and moving elsewhere, she got run over, like on the flat. I remember standing in the conservatory, and Gary said, "Okay, let's do this." And when I got back, I went to physio appointment. When I got back, she was dead. And I know that because that was me starting a whole new life. That also gave me a lot of consternation when I realized that, because it's like, well, if I hadn't decided, would she not have died? But it doesn't work like that, does it? You think, well, if I hadn't done it that way, maybe if I would rather have stayed in this house and kept her forever. That's not the point. She was there to teach me to move on. So one way or another, eventually I would have moved on and she would have passed. But to know that even an animal even use an accident to cross. Mm-hmm. So we know it's all planned, even though you think it's not. Mm-hmm. But here was a specific thing in this case. Is another reason why animals use an accident is because they need that physical push to actually leave the body, and back from a vehicle will do that. Mm-hmm. But that's sometimes, and that's also why you get that rallying of energy before they die sometimes. But so the one lady I was talking with, her cat had been okay at home, and it was past it. It had been a long time coming, but the cat had been fine, and then suddenly the cat wasn't fine, and she was like, well, just let go. And the cat had actually said, I'm trying to, but I can't. And I'd asked you if you had, and at that point she made arrangements to go to the vet, but it was just whether you had come across that or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've had clients where we've known that the animal is transitioning for a while. And there's different ways to ask the animal or have us feel how that is and where they are, which we can go into. But this, I've had animals that have been transitioning for a while, and they'll say, well, I'm fine. Like, I've got this. I'm just going to pass on my own. I'm going to fall asleep. They're going to, they don't necessarily tell you how, but they tell you that, or they have said, I've got this and I'll be able to do this on my own, and don't worry about it. And then I had a particular cat that I'm thinking of that was saying that the whole entire time. And this is like 6 months, 9 months in the making. And then the very last session said, and I need help. Now I need help. So kind of similar, but said it in a different way, which then the owner did what needed to be done, prepared for it and all that type. And the cat actually asked for specific things before, like, yes, I need help, but I want these specific things done beforehand, which was a lot. Say what?
What sort of things?
They wanted time with the human, like just sit, be present. A lot of the times when animals are transitioning, when you ask what can we do to support them, there's a lot of be present. I find there's also, in this situation, like they also wanted some special treats and they wanted to just really feel, a lot of animals, when they get ready to transition, know that physical touch they're going to miss it. So they'll ask to have more touch, even if it's just sitting next to, oh, my ears are starting to ring. We're on to something. My ears are ringing. They'll just want to feel the contact. You maybe not actually have hands in the fur. This particular cat actually wanted the human to dance with the cat, pick the cat up and hold it, and actually dance to a specific song. And what was so cool was when I told her all this, first of all, I didn't know that she actually used to dance with the cat, but as the cat transitioned, she was worried that it bothered the cat physically. The cat specifically asked to be held. I had no idea. And then asked for a specific song, which was their favorite song. I had no freaking idea. So anyway, so all that happens. And then there's sometimes they ask for that ritual, or they ask for that ceremony, they ask for that special time. And then they're fine with when you're ready to let go.
That's interesting, isn't it, that you talk about the physical side of it, because we always think of it as our loss. Because you grieve your animal when you miss having that little furry body, but of course the animals know that they're not going to lose you, but they are going to lose that physical sensation. And I hadn't really thought of that, but they enjoy the cuddling as much as we do. By the way, I sing with Sally. I sing with Twiggy, because she'd climb up and lie against my throat, but Sally likes to dance. George Michael, Faith, we usually dance to.
That's a great song. Yeah. Now, Lucas last night, because we're getting ready to go to Alaska next week, and I'm dreading the trip. I don't, for a variety of reasons, and I don't want to leave. I just don't want to leave him. I love all the things we do together. Say what? Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, that's another topic. Anyway, and he knows it too. But he also knows, like, it's going to be fine. Like, and he's just assuring me at the same time, he's like, it's okay to be sad that we're going to be apart, because he's sad. But last night he curled up on the bed as I was getting ready to go to sleep, and I was just kind of reclined, and he laid across my chest, and he had me put my book down, mostly my phone, and just sit and cuddle with him. It was so good. I love that. I'm so grateful.
Thirdly, she's come for a cuddle.
Yeah. I love it when she comes for cuddles.
Yes, that's very interesting that the animals ask for that physical, and that again was the lady who was talking to me was saying that actually that's what she got in the end, was that extra time of cuddling, because you forget that the animal, of course, because we forget that that's the whole point of being physical. Like, we think we've picked up the raw end of the deal being here on Earth, when actually we could be in another dimension where everything's happy and joyful and we don't have any of this shit going. But there's, from an animal's perspective, and in fact our perspective should be, but the joy of being in a physical body and like being able to curl up with a little warm body.
Yeah. Or like I had a client last night who the dog said, excuse me, she's older. She's not she's not, she might not be beginning her transition yet, but she's older. And so, we know what's going to happen at some point here. And so we just asked, what can your human do to support you? And she's like, I just like some more ice cream, please. And when I told her that, the human bust out laughing, because she's like, oh my God, I haven't been giving her ice cream thinking it was harmful to her. And I'm like, and the dog was like, nope. And Lucas was wanting me to say that story because he loves ice cream too.
Ice cream. Mummy gives me all this horrible healthy food.
Yeah.
Tally doesn't get treats because she obviously has issues with food, which I know is all down to me. We all have issues with food. That's really interesting. So, right, I'm glad about that. Now, I also think, because my experience, I haven't had as much with animals at transition, but certainly enough to know that, like you say, I've had a dog that said, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm not. And I think that then there's an element of that which is like, they don't want us living in the future going, well, when's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? So it's a way of reassuring you that, I'm on this, it's all fine. I'm going to let you know when it's going to happen. And so it's not necessarily that they don't know what's going to happen. It's more they're managing us, I think, because I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay, now now it's time. So I have had that because I had this lady who had a dog, and I mean he was just in a really bad way, but he was, every time I connected to him, he was absolutely fine. And she's like, I don't understand it. He's dying, he looks awful, he won't eat, he can't walk, and the dog's going, I'm fine, what's all the fuss about? And then right at the end, the dog's like, actually, no, it's just because I'm like, am I getting this wrong? Am I getting this wrong? And I got someone else to connect to him. She's going, no, he's fine. You probably did, actually. Like, because you think, well, can I be that wrong when the owner's so concerned about the animal and the animal goes, I'm fine. Okay, so I can't walk. So what?
Yeah. I think for me, and I just know, look, you and we've done this long enough now, and our teacher's done it for over 20 years. Like, we also know that as humanity ascends, this attachment to an outcome has got to go. That doesn't serve us, and it's being present that's actually what serves us. So it's not surprising to us, and because we've done this for enough years now, that we see it time and again, that they're going to tell you, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, because they actually are. They're just trying to get you to be fine too, and just be with them and enjoy the moment. Because what do they call it? Anticipatory grief that begins to take place when you know something is going to pass, whether it's human or animal, and you get all caught up in that and you miss the moment of your animal still being there. Yeah.
You brought up an interesting point that I'd like us to address, and that was about what you thought the animals are teaching us through the availability of euthanasia, should we say? If
Yeah.
that's a...
Yeah. So we were talking just quickly about this beforehand, and I said, not only do they want us to be present, but the way that I'm getting it from the animals is there is actually a larger message in this for humanity as a whole, in that we allow animals to cross when they are ready. We don't make them suffer through some type of physical condition, because that's the way it's supposed to be. We actually are like, oh, we can see you're in pain. We can see you're suffering. We can see you're actually asking us for help. We're going to let you cross. And that is also a message for humans, for us to do the same with our own human self, our loved ones, whatever. When humans ask for help to cross, that is a valid request, and we don't allow it based on our human built rules. Nowhere does it say from the divine that allowing someone to cross is a bad thing. I'm sure people will quote the Bible till the day is long, but I'm telling you, the divine is like, we need to allow ourselves the grace to know that our soul, what our soul needs.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay, we just need to know what our soul needs and honor it. And I don't necessarily think we do. I know we don't.
Just going back to the Bible, I'm sure I read something, like everyone assumes that suicide, for example, was a sin. I don't actually think it says that in the Bible anywhere. And that, I forgot my point was really, profound point there. Oh, that's right. So even if you do go back to the, if the Bible is your thing, you could argue also that in a lot of situations where people find themselves in really bad pain and unable to, or wanting to die and not being able to, they wouldn't be in that situation if it were not for other medical advances that had happened. Like, so if we'd had nothing and we were back in Bible days, they wouldn't have survived that long to have got into that state. They'd have been, you know, knocked off ages ago. Right, sorry, Sally's all over my microphone. She's so stubborn. I try to move her away and she's like, ah, you're not moving me. How? How could such a little delicate little thing like you? She's like an ox. You know, you sort of, it's almost like we've done all this to help life. Well, there's an obsession with keeping people alive, isn't there, really, in medicine? And yet, you know, when push comes to shove, and it's like, well, we've kept you alive this long, and actually now you're in pretty bad shape, and you're a bit shit, but you're not going to live through it. And then you're like, but we can't help you die. So that, you know, there's an interesting conflict there, if you like. Is it, are there not states in the States that allow euthanasia now? Because it was at Canada that they're allowed. I watched a program recently which was very interesting, actually. It was about, he's a Tory, would-be Tory MP, and his mother is, I actually think she's a cook, like a famous cook. She's a TV personality, I can't remember. It was very interesting because Prunella, somebody, and I think, is she a cook? I don't know, sorry, I'll look it up. So she's older and she's pro-euthanasia, and he's very anti, and they went and looked at a few places where it was allowed, and it was very interesting. There were some things that were concerning, I would have to say, and I have my own concerns about it, but on the whole he couldn't argue. Like, she'd go, but this and this and this, and he'd go, yes, I see that, yes, I see that, but it's wrong. It was just, you know, it was like there was no, there would be agree, but I just can't get past the fact that it's wrong. Like, it didn't, you know, it's just one of those things you think, you know, this is where an argument's going nowhere. It's like there are people who just believe, bang, it's wrong, and you just can't reason with them at all.
Right. There's just so much in that, but yeah. Yeah, there's, you know, in the States, I don't believe there is a place in the United States where it is legal to help somebody cross. I don't think so. There was a gentleman in the state in which I'm currently residing here in Michigan, Dr. Kevorkian, who was helping people cross, but he was doing it to some degree illegally. Well, I guess not to some degree. I think it must have been illegal, but because it was all in private. And then when it came out that he was doing it, then people actually were seeking his services. I do think, I didn't know about Canada. That's good to know. I thought Switzerland too. I think there's a place, yeah, that you can do it, but then it's only for like people who have money. And then, yeah, there's not the compassion component is out of it. And as far as the Bible goes, as I'm sure people will say, it is a sin. It's actually
the Bible was written by humans, so you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the only thing I struggle with, the one thing I get, and I think it's important that it's not rushed into, is the danger of other people being able to say when your life ends. That's the issue, and I know that that's a sticking point with a lot of these. Hey,
I said or begins.
Well, yeah, because
that's another topic. Sorry.
Because, you know, if I could just sign the paper and get my mum bumped off, I get her money. Not that there is any left, but you know, if there were, that, you know, there has to be that element of concern there about at what point are you allowed to make those decisions for people. But I also think, so there is that danger, but I also don't think that means that we can't work around this one way or the other. I mean, there has to be rules put in place, so you don't want to rush it. Mm-hmm. But I have to say that for someone I don't believe I have ever seriously considered suicide. I've been in a lot of dark places. That, ironically, has never been an option for me because it would be inconvenient and it would put people out, and it's just not done, you know, because it's a selfish thing to do, apparently, you know, all of that. So that's really the only reason probably I've never considered it, because that would just make me an even more evil person than you know. So because of my negative beliefs, it's not because I haven't felt that life would be a lot easier to just end, but you know, my own personal beliefs have always been, oh, you know, I don't feel like that now, but fortunately I don't feel like killing myself, so it's not an issue. But where's I going with that? It does, worry and frighten me that I don't know a painless way to kill myself should I need to. You know, because taking drugs isn't guaranteed. I actually don't know anything other than jumping off a building, which I'm not sure I'd have the courage to do. I'd like to think I could go in the sea and just swim and die of hypothermia, but you never know. There could be some busybody somewhere. And I also think that actually your physical body might then kick in and bring you back. Do you know, like I don't know mentally how much control you have over that pure survival instinct. So
Yeah.
the last thing you want is to stay in long enough that you're just a vegetable and then you get washed ashore and you live. I don't know, but it does feel like it should be something that I have control over.
Well,
I feel.
yeah, and then there's even the conversation of the element of control, because ultimately we're really not in control anyway. So to me, even if, so say in my, I'm going to take a step back. So say I'm connected in with the divine. I live my life connected at all times to the divine. And I realize that, yes, I have free will. At the same time, I also am aware of I'm on a journey and this is why I'm here and all that type of stuff. And say it gets to be towards the end of my physical life, and I know that I am in extreme pain. It is possible that the divine is serving up the pain or the feelings of, you know what, I think I'm good. I think I'm okay to go. That, I think that conversation is with the divine and it's okay to go. And if that happens, then the way to pass would be presented, and that the divine would actually be part of that process, as it is with animals, which I think is why they can ask for help, because they are connected to the divine, you know, a little bit more than we are, which is how they're trying to help us. So I think them being able to ask for it, and because we don't have the right or wrong, our right and wrong is completely opposite for animals as it is for humans. So then we can continue to honor that process for them. I think if we allowed the process to happen for us, whereas, oh, I do feel like it is time to go, I do want help, but you can understand that that could be divinely driven. So if you weren't in a state where it was actually being driven by the divine, I could see that it would get intercepted, whether by the divine, angels, your own mental issue, you know, all that type of stuff. I could see how things could not transpire because it weren't meant to. That's really philosophically deep.
Do you someone thinks that they're ready to go, but actually they're not?
Yeah.
But what about people who, for nefarious reasons, want to get rid of somebody? Because that would be not my concern. I don't think anyone's going to try and kill me, but I can see how that could be a concern, especially for older people with horrible families. Well, even financially, let's face it. If I personally was having to pay the care of my mother, I would want to push her under a bus, because I can't. Nobody can afford to pay that sort of money. It's horrendous.
Right. Which for me, this is what I'm hearing. There is this whole element of human, I'm just going to call it corruption, human corruption. Part of what we're all learning as we're here and this ascension is taking place is this connection to the divine, connection to community, and connection to our true selves. And until we reach that really wonderful trifecta that we're all striving for, and yes, it's a utopia and it probably sounds naive, but part of what's happened as we've been disconnected from ourselves and our community and the divine is this corruption and these rules that mean nothing, that are man-made and not divinely made. And so we have this, because of this disconnection from ourselves and community, we believe I'm the individual and I am in control. And therefore I want something, so I'm going to take it. And that's where all the stuff begins to transpire that are not serving humanity and the collective as best as it possibly can. But this is the shift that's going on too. This is part of why we see a lot of this corruption being brought to light, because this is part of it, being able to see, oh, look at that piece and look at that piece, because it has to get to light to be able to see it so we can resolve it. So I think this is part of that, if that makes sense. So I guess what I'm saying is, when we're further along the path, this notion of, well, I'm just going to bump them off because I really want the money, that begins to dissipate as human souls continue to evolve and we get to a better place. It's a long time and it won't be in our lifetime.
And I would argue that the you know, oh, you can't make rules just because there's a couple of assholes in the world.
And yet we do.
Well, there's all this fuss at the moment, you know, shifting gears slightly, but there's all this fuss at the moment about, I mean, I don't know if you know that the Scottish Ali, she's rampant. The SNP is imploding essentially, and there's all this, I don't know, Nicola Sturgeon hasn't been arrested, but people like Gary can't wait for her to be arrested for financial impropriety or something. I don't know what's going on. I'm not following it. But the one thing that Scotland did do has actually been very forward in the rules about gender and sexuality and that. And they had some rule that she had brought in about, not like just Nicola, but the Scottish government had brought in, which was to do with not needing a medical certificate or something in order to change a birth certificate. So it was for people who, so this is just, it was technicality, as in about the piece of paper of changing your gender. So like nothing else changed, but people have jumped onto this, and suddenly in the news was this, there was a male rapist who had identified himself as a woman and was in a woman's prison. Like, so that for the sake of the discussion, he's the asshole. But it's like, and people have been up in arms about this. So yes, of course, that's a ridiculous situation. But then they've turned it round to be against this bill, which is, I forget the details. And I know, I do appreciate readers that, you know, you're going to talk about stuff like this, you should get your facts right. And I don't have them right, but you can look. But essentially, it's like what the law was changing was a technicality. It doesn't change the fact that you can live as a woman and therefore use a women's toilet without the piece of paper, without your birth certificate. So the law was actually about the birth certificate, but they've turned it all into, basically it's all these people like, and even one of my friends said, I don't want somebody like that. They are not as much a woman as me. And you know, and I wish I have said nothing. You know, I've sort of said I don't agree, but I've just backed off from the conversation. But there's a bit of me go, why does it take away from you? It's like you can't legislate because there's some man who's a rapist and clearly a bad man who's now identified as a woman and has somehow slipped through the legal net to get into women, whatever that happened, right? There's a lot of things that went wrong in order for that to happen. You can't just blanket the whole world and say nobody else can ever be allowed to become a woman because this asshole managed to get in a woman's prison. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I don't know. You cannot legislate because of the bad people in the world. There are a few,
Yeah.
but I would argue that there are so many things that, however that situation came about, there would have been a lot of opportunities for someone to have stopped it happening. I would have assumed.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, if you think this is what the guys were just sharing with me too. It's like, if euthanasia for our animals is from a place of love, compassion, and the euthanasia for humans right now, the rules are based from a place of fear. Don't leave me. Don't go. Not wrong, not right. It's wrong. Like,
I think that's a lot of it. It's wrong. It's evil.
And I think the wrong is actually, these rules are, this wrong thing is based in a place of fear. Like, I'm afraid God's going to hurt me. Well, yeah, God is within you. God's not separate. Wait, sorry, what?
God will punish me for allowing this to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of the notion that God is within you, the divine is within all of us. So there is no really external. There it is, but it isn't. Like it does anyway. So, but he's
taking down the whole Christianity there, and Muslims and Judaism. That God is within you. He's not a man up there with a book of rules.
No, he's not. And I know Father Richard Rohr would agree with me, as well as many mystics on the Islamic side. So we could have a mystical conversation, any hoozle. But so if you think of euthanasia for animals, it's from a place of love. For humans, it's from a place of fear, the rules around it or the acceptance of it, as well as many of our laws are built from a place of fear. Don't touch me. Don't hurt me. Don't. Yeah, exactly. And until we decide to have compassion, like the incarceration system or the what do they call it? Uh, when you go to prison and you're trying to rehabilitation, whatever. What do they call that? When you get put in jail in the United States, there's really no, well, first it's privatized. That's a whole different conversation. But we're not working with humans that have made a mistake from a place of compassion and here's how I can help you move. Instead, it's punishment, 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 and you will never again vote. Like it's just, we need to start looking at things from a place of love and compassion.
I was watching a comedy thing actually, and he just said that, and it was talking about like from a joke perspective of the penal system. It's like, okay, so someone does something that is what's the word when it's just not nice to do it in public, but you know, antisocial, right? So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to take you out of society. I'm going to stick you with a whole bunch of murderers and this, and they give you absolutely no rights, keep you away from society, and you will learn how to become a person who lives in society. And you're like, well, how does that work?
Right.
You know, they're not taught anything.
Right.
It's not like you know, it's not like they then get, you know, they have some, I don't know, social classes where they learn how, you know, such behavior should have happened or whatever. Instead, you get removed out of it. You then come back in, you make the same mistake again, because why wouldn't you? You've done nothing different. All that's happened is you've actually now been treated really shit, and you've got cleverer at covering your tracks. You've met a whole bunch of criminals. You're probably on drugs and all these other things. You come back out, the same things happen. They go, you don't know how to behave in society, and they put you. Well, of course you don't know how to behave in society, because you've been isolated from society. You've been, oh yeah. Yeah, there's so much evidence. I used to get really worked up that it was these guys that they used to, like, I can't remember what they were called. They did a lot of like social education for work about how people work in teams and stuff like that. But when I'd actually read up on their background of it, and they used to rehabilitate prisoners, like they used to get prisoners into work and stuff like that. And I just watched a documentary on it, and there's so much evidence for this. So people that have been really, really badly abused or committed horrific crimes or whatever, if you can get them in a place where they are treated with honor and not necessarily love, but honor and respect, and let's say unconditional love as opposed to bodily love, but you know, treated with honor and respect, there aren't many of them that can't be rehabilitated. And when things go tits up, it's usually because somebody's come in and rocked the boat, or brought back those old wounds, or treated them with disrespect, and then, you know, as we all know, there's you've got a very powerful reaction to that. But there aren't many people that do not respond to love and respect and honor. Yeah, it might take a while, but then, you know, if you could reverse the whole system so they didn't get to be hardened criminals and alienated, I could go on forever about this. If everybody treated everybody with a little bit of respect, this wouldn't happen.
Well, and this is actually really another area where animals are showing us to stand in a place of love. So if euthanasia is one of them, another one is actually people that are incarcerated. Incarcerated. Because when they do the dog training in prison, sorry, choked up there. The bond between the animal shows the human there's another way to be. And it gives them purpose. I mean, the animals are so helping that. The other thing too, that there was, did I ever tell you that I did not too long ago a program with a woman? There was a client that I had that did both animal communication and intuitive coaching with me. And she actually works with incarcerated women and helping them move and like do yoga and whatnot. And she asked me to do a session with them where I did quick animal communication readings with them. And for one of these animals had passed. Some of them were still alive, but you know, these women are all in a minimum security prison or jail anyway. But for these women to hear these messages of love, I love you regardless of what transpired, regardless of what happened to you, regardless of what you did, I love you, is what every single animal said. And the woman that I was working with, my partner in this, she said, you would not, because I was on Zoom and I could see the transformation, but I couldn't see what wasn't on camera clearly. But the client / friend, she said, you wouldn't have believed the transformation that these women went through in that short amount of time, just to hear that something loved them unconditionally. Transformative. So why wouldn't we do the same with anything, whether it's in a transition perspective or in a incarceration perspective, or transitioning your gender perspective. Just love them. That's all.
There's a lady on one of my Buddhist retreats, and they have this ceremony thing when you actually join the Buddhists for real. I don't know what they call it, but we did one of these things, and I remember thinking, well, it's a bit nah, go along with it. And what it is when everybody says something nice about that person as they join. And actually, it was really moving, like really, really moving and touching. And I'm sure I had a conversation about this, and I'm sure it was Sally Heike that said that there's see, she's relentless tribe of people who, when somebody does something wrong or antisocial, let's call it antisocial, something that other people don't like, they bring the tribe together, and every single person in that tribe tells the person who's done something wrong why they love them and why they're a wonderful person. Like, and you're just like, oh my God, because most of us, ironically, we're all good because we want people to love us. That's essentially, most people, to our detriment, behave good because we want people to love us. And it's only when that you get hurt or let down or abused or rejected or abandoned, that's when people start going awry, if you like. It's not because they're evil, it's because they're hurt. I don't know, sorry, I know this is psychology 101, but it's so simple. It's so simple. If we could just, right, anyway, euthanasia, kill them all. We need a pill. No, I hope that's the first time I've seen something on TV that was an open discussion. So that was on about a month ago. It was very interesting, but it was also very interesting to watch this lady's son, Prue Leith, I think her name is. I think she's a chef, but her son being a Tory. But it was like you could see him, because they had lots of scenarios of like someone that had a very degenerative disease, and in talking to him, you could see him trying to pick holes in the argument, and he came away fully on board with understanding why this man wanted to kill himself, fully on board with understanding that this man probably had the right to kill himself. It was the right thing to do. He knew what he was doing. His future was pretty bleak, etc., 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 etc. But it's wrong. Do you know? It was just like, oh, for fuck's sake! It was almost like it's almost like his head just would explode at that point. That he just couldn't get past it. But one likes to think that if you're able to absorb all that information, even if you can't nudge over the end line, just the very fact that he's experienced that, I'd be very interested to see in a few months' time whether any of that has filtered through, because we all know what it's like. It's like, I'm like that about something I can't, and then suddenly you're like, okay, maybe, that's how change happens. Anyway, we could for ages.
We could, but I think this is a good spot to end.
Okay. Sally will be relieved. I don't know if you can hear her purring.
I can't, but Lucas is restless too. He's like, it's time. Tiki-taka, time to go for a WALK. I can't say the word or else. Although he can spell. I don't know who I'm fooling.
Well, thank you very much, Julie.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Good to talk with you.
Hey?
So good to talk with you as always.
Oh, I know. So, everybody, this is Sally, and I don't know, it's only 3:30 here, but she's relentlessly trying to get me to feed her, as she does. My name is Kate Foggan. With me, as always, is Julie Hurt, and together we are making like two humans being, talking about death and euthanasia. I had a joke about death. I'll have to wait till next time, or maybe that's not appropriate. I don't know. So, if you've enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe below, and if you also please forward it on to other people. Comments on what you'd like us to talk about, things that you have to say, or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or be right here on YouTube if you subscribe below. So thank you, everybody, and I won't say good night. That's not really good night. Goodbye.